We'll just start that now. And Maytal can kick us off.
Sure, guys. So welcome to our event, Crash Course on How to Apply to University. A brief overview of what we're going to go over today. So we're going to do a small introduction to how to apply the general OUAC application, as well as some information for Alberta students. Then we're going to go over supplementary applications and some universities they're required for. And we're going to finish off talking about some scholarships available to students, both entrance scholarships, which we'll talk a little bit about, and ones that you apply for. So part one is the overview of the application process. So if you are an Ontario student, the first thing that you're going to do is go to the OUAC website and select Undergrad 101. If you are an Ontario student. If you're not in Ontario, then select Undergrad 105. The next thing that you're going to do, and you might want to spend the most time on, is to research your university options. So check different websites for different programs at different schools, talk with family, friends, teachers, guidance counselors, and try to think of which program you think would suit you best, what best aligns with your career goals and your learning interests. A tip is to write down your program choices, the codes, and the prerequisites you need in your final year of high school to apply to them. So the next step is, so once you click OUAC Undergrad 101, you just need to create an OUAC account. So you just use a username and password that will be easy for you to remember. You will also be using this account for everything you need regarding OUAC, so make sure it's something that you remember and write it down. So the next step is to fill in some personal information and contact information. It's pretty straightforward. It shouldn't take you too long. It's just asking about your name, your background, high school, stuff like that. And OUAC also provides a very detailed step-by-step on how to fill out all of this if you need any other help. So the next step is to input the programs that you'd like to apply for. And you can do this by searching programs or by category or by entering the program code. All of this you can find through OUAC and different helpful links that they have on the website. There's also something called Programs My Comparisons that will help you compare the prerequisites and requirements for different programs. So I wasn't sure if you guys knew this already, but the cost is $150 for the first 3 university programs and choices. And it's additional $50 for any additional choice. So if you want to apply to 4 universities, it would be about $200. And then after you input all your universities and all your program choices, you're going to be asked to order them. So unless it's specifically stated on the university website, the order does not matter. It will not affect where you're admitted or which school you go to. So the next step is to upload any necessary documents. The schools will usually tell you on the website of the program that you're interested in if it's necessary to upload any documents and which ones you should upload. But yeah, all of that will be found based on your program choices. And then after you finish filling out all your information, you just proceed to payment. So once you choose your method of payment and click continue, you're going to receive an OUAC reference number. And you just need to remember that you have to pay on time because OUAC cannot process your application without the application fee. So once you get your reference number, just remember to print it and save it, and you will receive an email with these instructions. So a couple of important dates for Ontario students. So October, November is when you start to get access codes for your application. So your high schools and guidance counselors will probably give you in the coming weeks an access code that will help you start the application. Or January 12th is the deadline to submit your completed application. If you miss this deadline, you will not be able to apply for the fall term of the coming year. May 29th is the last date to expect a response from a Canadian university. So May 29th is the date that is the deadline for you to receive your last application, your last acceptances or rejections from the universities you applied to. And June 1st is the earliest date to respond to an offer. So this is the earliest day that you can accept or reject an offer.
Yeah, so things work a little bit differently in Alberta. The first thing you need to do to set up an application for a college or university in Alberta is to go onto Apply Alberta. And I've got a picture there and it just says apply now. That's the button you're going to hit. Now, there's a few different steps you might have to take depending on if you are an Alberta resident or if you come from outside of Alberta. If you are an Alberta resident, you're going to use your SIAMS account and your Alberta student number to set up a account called a My Alberta Digital ID account. If you are from outside of Alberta, you'll just go through some steps to set up a My Alberta Digital ID. And it's really just following prompts, putting in the personal information that they're looking for. But after you hit that Apply Now button, you're going to be sent to a My Alberta ID Digital ID account login page, and you're just going to hit Create an Account and follow the prompts. Now, if you do end up going to the U of A, after you do set up an application for the U of A and put in kind of your high school information, where you come from, everything like that, you're going to be automatically applied for an account with something called Launchpad. And what Launchpad basically is kind of a control hub where you can access all of your applications with the University of Alberta. You can see if you've been accepted, which is really important, obviously. You can see if you have all of your documents uploaded and everything. But it's really important that you check the email that you set up your My Alberta Digital ID account with. It's really important that you check your email regularly and frequently, and also check the U Alberta Launchpad. You're going to be sent credentials to log in the first time, and then you can change your password and everything. But yeah, it's important that you check both your email and the Launchpad page, because it's easy to miss sometimes that you've been accepted into a program that you're looking forward to. So just something to keep in mind.
And here's some important dates when you're applying to Alberta. So on October 1, your application opens for the U of A and MacEwan University. On February 13, you would be submitting your marks for the first semester of high school. And then on March 1, that's the deadline for most applications at the U of A. And August 1 is the deadline for submitting all of your documents, all your high school documents for the U of A. And during the first week of September, your classes would be beginning. And here's some resources that might help with your applications. And you could access these resources using the links below.
Hey guys, so now we're going to talk a little bit about the required documents that you might need for your university applications. So for all of them, I'm sure you're going to need a high school transcript. So this is something that your high school will most likely send for you, but in some cases you might have to upload it. But that's something that your school will inform you of. And depending on the program you're doing, such as like journalism, architecture, social work, you might need some additional documents such as references, a portfolio. Sometimes you need, if you're applying to an arts program, you need a sketchbook. And depending on the program or university requirements, you might need to do a language proficiency test.
So I'll be going over some supplementary apps that you'll have to be supplying the university applications with. For example, for McMaster Health Sciences, you'll have there is a link that's linked below, and through that link you can see all the questions that may come up. And it's recommended that you draft responses early, so don't wait until February to write your essays. Choose one prompt out of 3, 6 prompts in total, about 1,500 character limit per essay. Try to think outside the boxes because universities try to look for critical thinking and creativity. Queen's Health Sciences also requires some supplementary requirements such as essays. You can choose two of three short essay questions, and the answers have 2,000 character limits. Now, the essay criteria tests your personality and lived experiences, your connection, and your personal growth. Now, this could be through your extracurriculars or volunteering experiences as well. Waterloo also has some supplementary applications. So this is required for admission. It's not, I know a lot of programs require this for Waterloo. This includes short answers for extracurriculars, volunteer experiences, why you're entering that program, results for your Waterloo's math or science contests. I know for grade 12, one of the math contests was the Euclid contest. Explanations for courses taken outside of regular day school, used to learn more about your soft skills, responsibility, and commitment, among many other factors. Now, through these written components, they see how much involved you were in activities outside of the classroom. They see your demonstrated ability to manage multiple activities at a high level, and it highlights what's special or different about you and your extracurriculars. U of T, engineering requires some supplementary requirements as well, such as listing extracurriculars, volunteering work, club activities, competitions, and certificates. It also requires you to write a paragraph about a prompt online. It also has an online interview that consists of 3 questions, each with time limits, and 2 general questions about yourself, 1 spoken and 1 written, and a 3-minute video response, which is a creative prompt. Through this essay, you should explain which extracurricular activities you participated in with full detail. Make yourself look different than other applicants. They want to look for someone who stands out and is unique, and be confident and eloquent enough to work on the application. So use patience, use creativity, and yeah. For UBC, I know this supplementary applications are required for every single program. So this consists of short answer questions of you explaining how you responded to a problem and your unfamiliar situation, about you telling about yourself and what's important to you, and short descriptions of your extracurriculars. Which of these was most important to you? So these are used to determine whether you're a good fit for UBC. And through these and some additional essays, you can be considered for entrance scholarships as well. So some supplementary essay tips are: take the time to reflect, be specific and provide context and elaborate, and be true to who you are. U of A also has some supplementary applications that are required for admission to all Faculty of Medicine and Dentistry programs. They range from letters of intent to personal questions about life experience and achievements. You have to reflect on what sets you apart from others. Make use of what makes you unique. Start early on supplementary application writing and do research on your program of interest beforehand. This will also help with interviews, and get involved with a student group or try to do some volunteering and extracurriculars as well. This helps select applicants that are genuinely interested in the advancement of the profession. And through these writings, be honest and open, and start early beforehand and do plenty of research. Just some tips that I also have in addition are that when you're writing these supplementary applications, make sure that it would be really helpful if you give it to a peer or teacher to edit them for you, because they do look at your grammar and English through these applications as well. And also what I would do was put aside one notebook with all your usernames and passwords and all of the deadlines. And it's also useful to prepare a list of extracurriculars and volunteering works you did before applying before writing the essays and descriptions, and writing how these extracurriculars and volunteer activities have helped you develop certain skills and grow as an individual.
I can speak a little bit about professional programs. This is something I wish I understood better when I was going into college, because I think it's something that's kind of a concept that's really important to understand. So in university, you have professional programs and programs that aren't professional programs. But professional programs are especially different from the rest of university because they usually end in what's known as kind of an accreditation exam. Throughout a professional program education, there's going to be a lot more kind of application-based learning, like you're going to be doing a lot more, which I really appreciate. If you're kind of a hands-on person that needs to really do something before they understand it, like me, it might be something worth considering. Professional programs include things like nursing, teaching, what I do, medical laboratory science, doctors and lawyers, also professional programs they have to go through. But there's a lot more than that. There is actually a huge amount of professional programs and a huge amount of opportunities to get involved with them. And one thing you might find with professional programs is there's a little bit less research, and you get kind of more of a focused education on one particular thing, maybe one kind of career for after school. But there are still a lot of opportunities to do research if that's something you're interested in. And like we were talking about in the previous slides, kind of doing some advancement of the profession that you're interested in. And another great thing about professional programs is that a lot of times it's a lot easier to get a job as soon as you graduate. A lot of the higher rates for professional program graduates in Canada are pretty high. So just something to do some research in, whatever institution you're interested in, go onto there and look for those courses that end with accreditation exams and with something that you're going to take at the very end to be registered as a professional in your profession of choice, whatever you choose to be, whether it's a teacher or a nurse or one of the many other professional programs. So just something I wanted to say. It's an important concept to understand.
So now we're just going to go over some of the scholarships that are available to you through different universities. So starting off with the University of Toronto, they have over 5,000 undergraduate admissions awards that total nearly $25 million. So, so scholarships change a lot between schools, but there's two main categories. There's the entrance scholarships, which are scholarships that based on your high school GPA or your high school average, you will automatically obtain one of these scholarships should you accept the university. So for example, if you have a 90 average and you get accepted into U of T, then you might get a scholarship. But there are some scholarships that are worth that are usually worth a little bit more money that require an application. So it's not automatically given to you. You have to apply for it, and it may involve writing essays, doing an interview, videos, and some other, supplementary application things. So for U of T, they have the National Scholarship, which is a full ride scholarship. And I believe that is not an entrance-based scholarship. And then you have merit-based admissions awards. So these depend on your average. So someone that enters U of T with a 95 high school average will get a greater scholarship than someone that enters with a 70 average. But yeah, it's based on your average, and it varies from school to school. So McMaster has an award of excellence, which is $3,000. And it is given to students entering the first year of university that are in the top 10% of their faculty. So it doesn't need an application. This is something that if you meet the requirements of being in the top 10%, you're automatically given this. And then there are some faculty specific awards. So faculties like science or faculties of humanities. So this is once again an entrance scholarship. It's automatically given based on your average in the faculty. And it can range from 1,000 to 3,000. And then you have the specialty scholarships. So these vary from student to student, but they do require, they're not entrance scholarships. They require separate applications. So University of Waterloo, scholarships are awarded primarily on academic and personal achievements. Bursaries are another type of assistance that are awarded based on financial need. So the difference between scholarships and bursaries is that scholarships are usually are basically for anyone, but bursaries are based, they are in some cases based upon your average and your extracurriculars, but they're for people with financial need. So so University of Waterloo has the President's Scholarship, which is around 2,000 or 1,500. And it's for students that come in with an average of 95 plus. And it's also available for 1,500 with, if you have, also available is a $1,500 International Experience Award and Research Award for after first year. Then you have the President's Scholarship, which is $2,000, which is available for students that have a 90 to 94.9 average. And then you have the Merit Scholarships, which is $1,000, available to students that have an 85 to an 89.9. And Waterloo also has faculty scholarships.
So there are a couple of scholarships that you can apply for in Alberta. So first of all, there's the Rutherford Scholarship, which is up to $2,500. And this scholarship is based on your high school grades in the 5 core subjects. So depending on your grades, you could get up to 2,500 or less. And then there is the Jason Lang and Louis McKinney Scholarship. This is for undergraduate students who maintain a GPA of 3.2 and are enrolled in a full course load during their fall and winter semester. There are also many other scholarships that you can look at using the Student Aid Alberta link down over here.
So other than entrance scholarships, there's a couple resources for you to find general scholarships. So these are things that you fund by yourself. They could have to do with the school you're applying to, or they could be completely separate, run through different companies and organizations. And it's stuff that you'd fill out your own application for or apply to on your own. If you do well or you're successful, then you get a scholarship that is usually applicable to any school you apply to. So with these ones, in most cases, it doesn't matter which school you accept, you'll still get the scholarship. So you have the Loran Scholarship, which is $100,000, and it's available to students admitted first year who maintain an average of 85 plus. They have to be Canadian citizens, born between January 2001 to September 2007. And there is a link here to more info about it for the application process and other requirements they may have. A great website that I've personally used a lot is Scholarships Canada. So it's basically a hub or a website that lists a bunch of opportunities for you and a lot of scholarships based on something you fill out. So when you start with the website, you'll fill out a little information about yourself, and from there it will match scholarships that you meet the requirements for, which makes it way easier to apply. And these vary from scholarship to scholarship. Some of them are for thousands of dollars, some of them are for a couple hundred, but if you apply to quite a few, they really build up and make a difference. And another resource you can look at is the Government of Canada scholarships, which are a variety of scholarships available to students. The requirements and eligibility vary by application. And another thing I'd just like to say about scholarships, entrance scholarships for university, is that in a lot of cases, they actually continue past first year. So for example, at my school, Laurier, if you enter with a 95 average from high school, you are automatically given an entrance scholarship of $5,000. But going forward, so when you're in second year, third year, and fourth year, you're still given a yearly amount of $5,000 if you maintain a certain average. So there's a lot of schools that actually continue it based on based on your success and keeping a certain average while in university.
Right. Thank you to all of our speakers for providing all this information. Before we move on to questions and the open Q&A portion, there's just some contact information here for our team in case you have any follow-up questions. But for now, you can feel free to drop them in the chat and we can go through them. And we'd also like to highlight to any of the high school students on our call right now that if you have any specific questions, if you're looking to speak to a university student in a very specific program, we run a coffee chats program, which you can sign up for. The link to that will be in the chat. And any high school students that are looking for extracurriculars and a volunteer experience, we also run an ambassador program where you can volunteer to help our team create events like this and much more. So we'll open it up to the Q&A portion now. So if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat and we'll read them out. Just to kick this portion off, the first question that was submitted through the sign up form was, how do you decide which programs to apply to? And do you have any tips on how students can choose?
So I can start answering that. I can talk about my personal experience with it. So my goal is to enter a medical program after undergrad. And there's a lot of different routes that you can take to that. There's a lot of different science programs out there, and I wasn't really sure what the best one was. So the way that I mainly chose was I looked at a handful of science programs in universities that looked good to me. So mainly ones that I knew of, ones in Ontario, because I want to stay close to home. And I started comparing the programs. So first I compared the prerequisites that I needed. So what high school classes do I have to take to enter this? And then I compared, which I found the most helpful, is their first and second year classes. So I wanted to enjoy undergrad. I wanted to like what I was studying and like the classes I was taking. So I'd look on the websites and I'd find what type of classes I would take in different programs. So, and if I liked the classes or I enjoyed what the program was about, if I enjoyed their way of teaching, then I knew that it was probably the right program for me. Different programs and different universities have a variety of ways of presenting materials to students. Some places like McMaster have a huge emphasis on flipped classrooms, where you do a lot of the studying at home, and in some cases, lectures are flipped classroom, meaning that it's mostly discussion-based and group project-based. So it's not like high school where someone's just, presenting information to you. It's a way to really engage with the information. And other programs at other schools are very straightforward, where it's just a standard lecture. So based on your learning style and different courses that interest you, I think that's a great way to determine what university would be right for you.
Fantastic. Paxton and Preble, did you want to chime in?
Sure, yeah. Really take a good look at your interests. If you have a high school subject you like more than your others, or something on your free time that you really want to pursue, start there. And then I would also suggest to try and be realistic. So see how many years of high school you have left, or how many classes you have under your belt already, and look at the application requirements or the class requirements for whatever you're going into or whatever you're interested in, and see if you can reach your goal of meeting all of those requirements necessary before you graduate. Or maybe I know a lot of people did a little bit of upgrading after their last year in high school. So that's always an option as well. Yeah, but take the two-step approach. First, start with what you're really interested in, and then look at ways that you can accomplish your goal of getting into the program or pursuing whatever your interest is in university.
So when picking a university, one thing that I looked at as an individual, I didn't really like going into a big classroom. So I looked at the class sizes that were available and picked a university that matched my needs as a student and what type of support was available if I needed any help. So definitely look at all the different resources that are available at your university or when picking a particular university. I know for some university, there are some extra office hours that are hosted by the staff members. So if you think you're one of those person who need extra help with your homework, definitely choose a university that suits your style of learning.
Great. We'll move on to the second question that I received. Does the application process change if you are applying to universities outside of your province? For example, if an Ontario student wants to apply for a program at UBC, would they still apply through OUAC? If no one has any specific insights, I do think that the process changes. So UBC isn't an option through OUAC because it's specifically Ontario University's application center. So if you're an Ontario resident, you're applying outside of Ontario, each school will sort of have their own platform, which you can probably find on their website. Our next question is, when should we apply for scholarships exactly? After applying for university or before?
So it really depends on the scholarship, I think. A lot of them have different deadlines. I would start looking at them. I'd say after you apply to university, if you want to do, other than entrance scholarships, I would start looking at it kind of while you're choosing your programs and just look at the different deadlines. Some of them are due far later in the summer or even early into the year, and some of them are due pretty soon, like around the time acceptances come out. So yeah, my best advice is to start looking at the possible scholarships you're interested in and compare the deadlines.
Right. This next question is a little specific, but for the $150 given, can you apply for 3 programs in one university or apply at 3 programs at 3 different universities?
So the $150 is based off of basically 3, like applying to 3 places. So it doesn't matter if it's in the same school or not. As long as it's 3 places, like 3 programs or 3 universities, it will be $150. So it's $50 per program / university that you are applying to, even if it's within the same one.
Great. Our next question here is about early admission. So if any of you have insights on that, that would be helpful. If you apply for early admission and don't get in, can you apply again for regular admission?
So I'm not sure if I'm understanding the question wrong, but I believe that there isn't really a separate application for early admissions in most cases, at least in Ontario. Your grade 11 marks are used for early admissions. So if you're applying places and you have a really high average from grade 11, then you might receive early acceptance, which is usually a conditional offer based on what your grade 12 marks will be. But as long as you submit your application by the deadline, I believe that's the only application you have to fill out. I don't think that there's a separate one for early or late admissions.
Yes, that's my understanding of that as well. Similar sort of question, if I do better in grade 12, what marks would they use for scholarship / acceptance?
They use your grade 12 average for your scholarships and your entrance scholarships. It might change if you apply to one outside of your school. So one that requires supplementary applications, they might look at more than just your grade 12. But for entrance scholarships, they will look at your grade 12 average.
And how will my average be calculated for admission if I have required courses in semester 2 after the applications are sent in?
So my understanding is that you will receive a conditional offer based on your current average. And if you do not maintain a certain average when it's time to accept, they could rescind your offer or they could just keep it. So for example, if you have like a 95 average in your first semester, you might get a lot of acceptances. But if suddenly your whole grade drops to like a 50 or 60 in second semester, the universities do have the right to take away your offer. So when they're calculating it for admissions, they're just going to use what's provided to them, as long as you make sure you take the required courses. And if you don't take a required course that's needed as a prerequisite, they also might not let you into the program. So yeah, that's my understanding at least.
Our next question is there a mark boost for Alberta students this year? I know that there is none for UVic this year. What about the others?
Not sure for this year, but when I was applying for undergraduate, there was definitely a mark boost, but you would have to check with each school and see whether they do the mark boost or not.
This next question is, and we can broaden it a little bit, but what sort of extracurriculars or other activities do you think would help you with the supplementary applications or the scholarships? Would things like DECA help?
Yes, I can talk a little bit about this. So first, I just want to make clear, because I was very confused about this when I was applying. Unless your program requires a supplementary application, they do not look at your extracurriculars or your volunteering or anything. It is purely based off of your grades. If you do require a supplementary application, doing extracurriculars, like things that interest you, whether it's a school club or a job or something, or volunteering outside of school, that's something that can help you write your supplementary applications, not because they ask for activities, but because it's the type of experience that gives you a better understanding of yourself and your goals and things you're interested in. So there's a lot of different skills that you can learn from doing different extracurriculars, and the skills you learn are the things that you can talk about in supplementaries that might make them worthwhile. But if you're just applying to a general program, I'm not discouraging you from doing extracurriculars by any means. I encourage all of you to participate in them, but they will not be considered for your application if the program does not require supplementary applications.
And I'm not sure if any of you have experience with IB, but there's a question asking, do universities look at IB raw scores or the final marks?
For this one, it depends. So I think they take the highest one. So if your IB mark is higher, they'll take that. Or if your high school mark's higher. So it depends on it's the highest grade between the two.
Great. If you were to apply to 2 universities, would the application fee still be $150 or would it be less?
My understanding is that you're charged $150 regardless, and that's just for the 3 schools. So I think whether you do 1, 2, or 3, you're going to be charged $150. So it's best to just take advantage of that and do all 3.
Do competitive undergrad programs in Ontario, such as the health sciences, look down on grade 12 students having a spare period? Does it affect your acceptance chances?
I think that as long as you meet your requirements for the prerequisites and you have and you meet their requirements regarding your grades, I don't think they would even know that you have a spare, as long as you just have all your classes, but they don't look down on you at all for having a spare.
Yes, I would second that. I think in high school you get sort of caught up in these, what about the spare, what about co-op and all these courses, but they don't negatively harm you in any way. Our next question is, what is the best way to find a program that best fits your future career choice? I want to be a psychiatrist and mainly find programs tailored to psychology. What would be the best way to find more psychology programs, psychiatry programs?
So how I would go about that is Usually on program websites or different university websites, they have information about what the graduates of their program go on to do. So for example, in my program, they're like 15% go on to dentistry, 20% go on to medicine. So they say things like that. So if you can find on the programs you're interested in on those websites, if they have any information regarding what graduates do after, it might help you see what the program is best, like what kind of students the program is best tailored for. So if a lot of the people in the program go off to do psychiatry or psychology, then that may be the right program for you. But I would also look at different requirements for grad school. For example, I believe to become a psychologist, in a lot of cases, you need to major in psychology in undergrad. Regardless of your major, you can still go on to grad school and get a PhD in whatever you need to do. But I do believe that having that majoring in psychology in undergrad is an advantage. So I would look at your grad school options and then the different kind of careers people from that program go on to do.
Great. And how would you identify the teaching styles of the universities you want to apply to? Where would you sort of find that information if you were looking for it?
This kind of stuff is also available on individual university websites. For example, like the example I used before, McMaster, they're very proud of their flipped classroom and their very interesting courses. I believe that they actually have a course called, it's a science fiction based course for health sciences where they look at different characters in science fiction, such as zombies or vampires, and you have to scientifically explain how they would exist in the real world. So, some schools really like to kind of boast on their website their creative and unique teaching styles. So this is all stuff you'd find for individual universities.
Are there any advantages to applying early at all?
I can speak a little bit about this one. Yeah, I would say it's probably best if you apply as early as possible, just because the earlier you apply, the sooner application committees, like the people who read the applications of high school students, are able to see if you're a good fit for the program. And like we talked about earlier with the grade 11 grades, you could even be accepted early, like before you even graduate high school. If you don't apply early and you kind of put it off to the last second, there could be the possibility of your classes kind of filling up and maybe not getting the opportunity to get into the classes you need to take, which could potentially be a problem. So I would recommend, as with scholarships, apply for university and scholarships as soon as possible. Do your research as soon as possible, and try and get the process going.
Is there a deadline to join volunteer or extracurriculars to add to your admission or supplemental application? If I join after submission, will it be considered? And do universities track how much time you spend in each organization?
I can take this one. There is a deadline to add extracurricular to your application. So if your application is due on September 1, most university would say list all the extracurriculars that you did before September 1. So if you join something later, it won't be added. And university do check how much time you commit. They don't necessarily look at the average, but they look at the time period that you were volunteering at the organization.
And for Ontario, because you're not including your extracurriculars in your application, the only sort of deadline would be the deadline you submit the supplemental application, just because, after that, you won't be able to talk about the extracurricular that you added or want to talk about. Any recommendations on how to find internships? for job opportunities in high school?
I can talk a little bit about this. So it really depends on the field you're going into. I can only really speak about the science part of it. But a lot of it is going on different organization websites and just seeing if they have any opportunities for students, and then emailing some of the people in charge, or going on the organization website, maybe filling in an application. For example, in high school in the summer, I worked as a research student at Sick Kids Hospital. And they had a pretty well-known summer program called SURE. And this is something that the application went up, I think, late December, early January. And it's something that you'd fill out and then contact different people that you want to work with. So it really depends on, it's a very specific process. It really depends on the field that you're interested in. But yeah, a lot of it just involves going to places that you'd be interested in working at and just emailing people or calling them and asking if they have any opportunities available.
How beneficial is it to take a university program with co-op? What benefits or drawbacks would it have?
I can talk a little bit about this one as well. So I'm not personally in co-op, but I know quite a few people that are. So I think a huge benefit of co-op is that it allows you to contribute a lot to, like, it allows you to pay a lot for your education, because it is incorporating paid jobs and like basically breaks in your school to work a job where you will be paid and compensated, which can help you pay for your education if that's something that you're responsible for. It is also a great way to make connections in the field you're interested in and get experience. It's a great way to learn about what you want to do. So you might go into university thinking you want to do a certain job, and then you do a co-op in it and you realize it's not for you. So then you have a lot of opportunities to try new things and try new careers, and really learn what you want to do. I believe that a drawback is that I think it does extend the length of time you're in school. So a lot of the people I know in co-op are actually in 5-year programs, because it takes a lot longer to finish, since you do a semester of school, then a semester of co-op, and then another semester of school. So you are taking breaks, which will cause it to run longer than just a regular program.
If you are a part-time student, does it affect your eligibility for an entrance scholarship?
Can answer this one. It does. Every scholarship has different requirements. Some scholarships require you to be a full-time student, while some scholarships don't. So it totally depends on the scholarship.
When universities look at your top 6 U-level courses, do they look at your top 6 or the top 6 in the prerequisites?
I believe that, like, once again, it will depend on the program you apply to. If your program only has, like you take 6 courses and your program only has 3 prerequisites, then they're just going to take, or sorry, if you've taken 7 courses, and the program only has 3 prerequisites, they're going to look at your top 6, including those prerequisites. If it has 6 prerequisites, it's going to look at those over your top scores.
And a question here about professional programs so for medical school or law school, are there any specific programs you have to enter before law school, or is it possible to study in any undergraduate program?
Yeah, so like the pre-professional requirements for different professional programs are really variable. Like for my profession, medical laboratory science, I had to do 1 full year of prerequisite classes, and I had to do the exact classes they told me to, right? So with something like law, that's going to depend on what university you're going to specifically in Canada. If you go to the webpage for law at whatever university you want to go to, there's probably a list of classes that you'll need to take. And if there's a list of classes that you need to take, then you could choose a major and a minor that would allow you to take all of the required classes. Or if there is a program or some kind of entry program for law that a university requires you to be in, then that's also going to be there on the webpage specific for the university you want to attend. Yeah.
Yeah, so for law school, med school, you can take any program you want. You just have to complete those prereqs. Sorry, I'm just skimming through the questions here, making sure I don't miss any. So when is the best time to submit applications? I think we touched on this for Alberta, as early as possible. Maytal, did you want to contribute for Ontario?
Yeah, for Ontario, as long as you do it before the deadline, it's fine. I would get on it earlier rather than later, because you never know what could happen. There's always a last minute emergency, something that always happens that could prevent you from finishing it. So it's best to try to submit earlier than later. I also know that if you submit like a week earlier, and like if you and another person have the same average, same everything, and they submit a week earlier than you, they will receive their acceptance earlier than you. That doesn't mean you won't receive acceptance, but it's actually beneficial because you get to find out earlier in most cases.
Next question here is about early acceptance, but I think we clarified that you don't necessarily apply for early acceptance. You just follow the deadline you're given. You might just get accepted earlier in the process. The next question is, how do references work and how do they benefit your application?
So I think references are only required to schools that would be part of supplementary documents. So this is not something that all programs would require. And I think that if the program is requiring a reference, then a good reference could probably be the difference between you and someone else with the exact same average or extracurriculars as you. So it's important to get a strong reference if that's something that your program would require.
Do universities look down upon taking night school for a required course, or do they just care about the grade that is achieved?
So when I was in high school, I did quite a few night courses or summer school courses. I wouldn't say that schools look down on it per se. In your application, you do have to state you have to state all the places you took school or all the places you did class. So if you did night school class, you will have to, like at one point in your application, you will have to state that a course you took is like a night school course, or it's a private school course. Once again, it's very individual. It depends a lot on the program. But in most cases, it doesn't hinder your application unless you basically take nothing during the year and all your courses during summer courses, then you might run into a problem. But other than that, I'd say it's fine.
And we'll make this next question our last question, since none of the others have come in. But I think one of you mentioned about majors and minors. So how do you minor in something? Is it necessary? What's a major? Could you clarify that?
Yeah, I could probably speak a little bit more about that. Majors and minors are kind of like self-declared focuses of study that you want to pursue. So when you get into university, like say you apply for science at the University of Alberta, you're going to get, if you do get accepted, you'll get accepted and get into the Department of Science or the Faculty of Science. And then within the Faculty of Science, you can declare your major and your minor. So if you declare, say, biology as your major, that will allow you to take a certain amount of biology classes while pursuing a Bachelor's of Science degree. And then when you graduate with the Bachelor's of Science degree, after you've gone through all those steps, and you've been a biology major throughout your 4 years of university or how many ever years you take at university, you could potentially get a Bachelor's of Science in biology, or a specific focused kind of bachelor degree upon your graduation. And minors, you don't have to apply for them. They're something you kind of declare along with your major. Minors are kind of like a secondary point of focus that you could say you'd be declaring. Say if you took biology as your major and then chemistry as your minor, taking chemistry as your minor would allow you to take a certain amount of chemistry classes as well in support of your biology classes, which is your major. And then you can graduate kind of with a broader experience in both. So majors and minors give you the ability to take certain classes. Like if you were an arts major or like a fine arts major or something, the faculty would take a look at how many classes you're taking. And let's say you're taking all science classes or all biology classes, but you're a fine arts major, they would be like, well, you're supposed to be taking fine arts classes kind of thing, right? So it kind of helps you or kind of allows you to take certain classes, what your major and minors are. I don't know if I did a good job explaining that.
I think that's great, and a great place to wrap up this event. So thank you everyone for attending. We know there were a lot of questions, so if we didn't get to your question, feel free to DM us on Instagram. Someone will get back to you, and I'll put the coffee chats form in again. So if you want to talk to a specific student in a specific program, feel free to just sign up and we'll match you with someone right away. But thank you all so much for attending. These slides will be posted on our website, and so we'll be recording within a week or so. So you can look out for that and send that along to any of your friends as well. But if not, thank you so much to all our attendees and our speakers today.